Hello and welcome to another Revel Coach conversation. I am Allison Nissen, co-founder of Revel Coach, along with my sister, Marcy Stout. And today we are so lucky to have Erin Brawley here with us. Erin, what's been going on? Tell us a little bit about who you are and what's happening.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And I appreciate the opportunity to come on and speak with you both. What has been going on? So I work for an organization called Randstad Technologies. I've been with Randstad for about, be 6 years in August. So in total, 19 years within the staffing and solution industry. So I've had a lot of great opportunities throughout my career and worked with and for a number of awesome individuals and have learned a lot along the way. Obviously, we've got some mutual contacts, Marcy, that you and I both know and have come across throughout our careers, I'm sure. But so I oversee the Northwest region. So I've got Seattle, which is where I live, as well as Portland, Sacramento, San Francisco, and San Jose in my scope. So all sales, all things. Yeah.
All things sales. So Erin, I am so excited for this interview because I feel like, quick shout out to Casey J. Cox who introduced us. Yeah. I feel like it's nice to meet with somebody that's working, in corporate America and really developing teams and culture. I think right now we can't overestimate or underestimate, whichever way you want to look at it, but the value of rebuilding culture and teams, because everything's changed and how we, our expectations of our employees and our expectations of our employers have changed. So when it comes to like building culture and teams right now, can you give us a little insight on how you've been finding some success?
Yeah. Well, and it's probably a bit twofold. I mean, traditionally, easier to build culture and create that teamwork when we're all sitting in the office together and can spin around in our chairs and everything's face to face. So then that's really where things started for me, even as early back as my K-Force days. It's just an opportunity to bring people together, and we all have the same goal, the end goal in mind. And I think in the recruiting and or staffing industry, it's such a partnership, sales and recruiting. You really can't do one without the other. So I learned from people like Casey and other mentors and leaders along the way that, coming into that environment, it's about building that partnership, building that trust, and always giving the other person the benefit of the doubt. When things don't go right, it's never that somebody is purposely trying to make your life a little more difficult. So I think from a traditional sense, it just really was about building that trust and partnership amongst the teams. When COVID hit, all of a sudden it became a little bit less traditional in terms of just team building, and I think more complicated because we were all doing more of this stuff. Everybody's on screen. And so we really worked hard at making sure people felt connected and nobody felt like they were on an island, because the market was tough as it was. And then just having people sometimes start their career never having met even their peers or their leadership in person. So thankfully now we're back, we're doing some hybrid stuff, and you just see people light up a little bit more, and just that collaboration and sitting desk side is a refreshing change back to where we once were. So the balance has been good. So.
Yeah, I do feel like there's so many things we've learned, and we actually had to be more intentional with our leadership because you weren't in person all the time. And I was just thinking of, like how you get to know each other over Zoom. You can't even do, like the office meetings, you do like 2 truths and a lie.
Yeah.
Well, half the time we were working with people and like, we don't even see their hands. So we don't know if they're married or not. And then in real time, like that social chit chat. So it's hard to actually know people. So what I found is that people started working harder to get to know each other and create forums for that, which was a good thing. And now as it's settling back down, it's kind of like that blended workforce.
Yeah. And I find with my leadership team, I remember being really deliberate around passing the mic to other people. I'm like, guys, I get so tired of hearing my own voice, and I'm sure you do too. I can imagine. So pass the mic off to other individuals on the team and give them an opportunity to, to share, to present, whatever that is. So So we are getting a little bit more, I guess, input from other people outside of just the leaders themselves. So.
Well, I'd love to know just some basic techniques. So we have a lot of people in this community. We say we work with authors, coaches, and entrepreneurs and executives. And so if somebody's, say, managing a team, what are some things that you've done that you found works that kind of creates that positive culture of focusing on results?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is just being willing to be vulnerable, right? Like I never assume that I have all the answers, and really just, I can speak to my own personal experiences and share things along the way that I went through when I was still running a desk, so to speak. But there's so much that changes, just in the world, and certainly within our industry as well. So I think just being willing to, take time and sit down and not teach, but don't talk at your team, right? And give them the opportunity to kind of come up with their own solutions and be patient and allow for that space. I think early on when I first started in leadership, I kind of viewed it as like a checklist, like, okay, I would deal with things as they came to me and I would just solve for everything. And then ultimately, and my team gets tired of me saying this, but like, it's like making the bed for your kid for, too many years. And then eventually you're mad or frustrated because they don't know how to make their bed. And whose fault is that? Well, it's mine. And that's like a real life example. I was making my son's bed until he was 12. Mainly because I didn't really like the way he made it. But I had to give him space to do it. And over the years, he's a much better bed maker. And it's kind of the analogy I use with our teams. Like if we give them all the answers all of the time, because we assume that, our way is the right way, and we don't leave space for our folks to become creative and more confident in solving their own problems. And that does take patience. And when, you guys both know, when you're moving in a very fast-paced environment, it's easier just to solve it for them. But it's, teach them how to fish or whatever,
I do love that. I feel like the analogy I always use is tying the shoes, like a mom out of frustration and speed tie the shoes, but doesn't realize if they just actually taught them once, it would save probably about 10 minutes every morning.
I know. So true.
So what does a win look like for your team? So when you put them all together and they're learning, they're growing, they're stretching, like what does that win look like?
I think it's being self-sufficient. Watching folks within my organization, especially newer salespeople, but just, all individuals, it's watching them have a level of success that I don't even think they knew existed. And so and Allison, you and I talked about this, I never really had aspirations to get into leadership when I first started in this industry. I was a recruiter, I was running a desk, I was happy to worry only about myself and, trying to make a good living, et cetera. And I think I was doing pretty well. And then, the opportunity presented itself. I resisted for a little bit because I still wasn't sure that leadership was my path, but I'm so glad I took that leap. And so now wins for me, like I said, are just watching individuals and teams achieve things without me, having to, again, provide all the answers and provide, all the structure around it. Is just giving my leaders that report into me and, the individuals that report into them that space to kind of create it. And I view myself as, someone that just clears hurdles and gets messes out of the way and, allow them to do the fun stuff.
Awesome. So if we go back to what you thought leadership was, why you didn't want to get into it, and now you're into it and you really are seeing those benefits, like kind of talk us through the rewards of leadership that you didn't expect.
Yeah, I think the biggest fear for me, so I'll start there. The fear for me was, how do I try and motivate people to drive the same results that I would want to drive for myself? So it took a little bit of that element of control out of it for me, which at that time was really scary. Maybe I was a little bit of a control freak. I don't know. Ask Casey. He and I worked together for so many years. He could probably tell you. But that was the most intimidating factor of getting into leadership, is how do I lead people to want to achieve the results that I knew that, in most cases they were capable of. It's just, doing it and guiding it, I guess, are two totally different things. So that was my resistance, I think, early on. Now, I look at leadership in such a different way. As I was mentioning, when I first started, it was sort of like, it was a checklist. I dealt with things as they came in. Now I feel like I'm able to better prioritize what really is on fire, or maybe, give it a little bit of space and time. And ultimately your people, will surprise themselves probably more than they'll surprise me, because they're very capable individuals. And, without letting them fall, I feel like I'm just kind of a cushion here. Come to me as you need escalation or advice or whatever it is. But I don't feel the need anymore to just be so far in it, if that makes sense. I don't feel the need to, I roll up my sleeves. I'm on client visits later today, actually. I love that part of, the job, because that never goes away regardless of what role you're in. But just to see people, figure it out and flourish, and then make lives for themselves and their families, I think, beyond maybe what they originally thought coming into it. That's the stuff that I love. I love watching that. I have so many examples of my career in leadership, just kind of, seeing these sort of wide-eyed, younger salespeople or recruiters coming into the business, like, what did I get myself into? And then 3-4 years later, they're buying their first house, their first, cool car, whatever's important to them. It's fun. It's super fulfilling for me.
You know what, Alice and I do a lot of work with people and like goals and stuff like that. And we're always like, it's not the destination, it's the journey. And you're the best examples of experiencing the journey of the goals. So like we call them journey goals. And so you have a goal, like I want to be in leadership. But if people aren't thoughtful about what they can experience along the way and how they grow along the way and how they contribute to others, it's a kind of a shallow, it doesn't give as much meaning. So, sometimes when we do the journey goals, people start saying things like, I want to experience somebody on my team going from unsuccessful, fearful to buying a home, and that to me is like such a huge reward. And you would never think about that as like a goal you'd write down. But when you have your goal, a successful leader, and you have these types of things, it honors all the work you do and the why. And just because, you're referencing kids, there's nothing better than the mom swinging for the fences and the kids singing, and she's celebrating things of significant, not necessarily like, we put 12 people to work this week, like things that are genuinely meaningful, like somebody buying a home because of you and your leadership. I just thought that was a great example of journey goals.
Yeah. No, I love it. And that's what we're all here for, right? We don't live to work, we work to live, I guess. And, at the onset of every calendar year, we down to, the desk level, but and just each office puts together, our goals. What do we want to try to achieve for the year? Actually, what will we achieve? I try to exit the word try out of our vocabulary, but we always make room for personal goals, because we want to hear about, like, what do you want to do? When I first started in this business, I had a leader. Her name's Angela Aronica. She's wonderful. She's still in the business. She would have us do goal boards, those little, and I think at first everyone was like, oh, give me a break. These things. But we did them every year, or vision boards, I guess is what they're called. But it's so true. Like, you put your mind and you just keep those things visual. It was amazing to see these things come to fruition, just because we had them in front of us every day. And it was so nice to be able to see what was important to other people, because it, obviously varies from one person to the next, but rooting each other, everybody's rooting each other on, and very aware of what everybody's aiming for. So I think that stuff's important.
Yeah, Erin, it's vision boards where we do a lot of vision boarding. I don't know what you call the actual active verb of it, but the knowing and understanding other people's personal goals. It's like all of a sudden you realize, you know what, I could help you with X because I've been there, I've done that, or I know somebody. And when you are able to help someone else with their personal goals, it creates even a closer bond and allows the team to grow and flourish, because you're not just working together as a team for a corporate goal, but then you're helping all the others, grow around you. And I mean, really, that's the reward of doing that. And I think it's a great concept to include those personal goals with the corporate goals.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. It's got to be meaningful. Otherwise, when times get really hard, it's just so easy to want to throw your hands up and you forget why you're doing this stuff, right? And so I think for me, that's always front of mind. I have my own whys or whatever, primarily based on family and kids and being an example for, et cetera. But, without any of that, on the days where you feel like you're banging your head up against the wall, nothing's coming together. If you don't have that, I think, as your foundation and others don't know about it, it's, it makes things so much less fulfilling, I feel like. So.
Oh, I love how you're saying that. Such a beautiful way of wording it. And I'd love to kind of stay on this topic for a little bit. A lot of times people get a little bit lost in the busyness of their tasks, of what it takes to be successful creates a lot of busyness, and it creates a lot of noise and stress and things like that. What advice do you have for people to kind of make sure the main thing's the main thing, and you're not lowering your goals, but you are enjoying, you're kind of keeping things in perspective? Any stress management techniques or advice?
Yeah. Well, I think first and foremost, we talk a lot about just keeping it simple. I mean, I have the benefit of working in an industry it's a pretty simple business model at the end of the day. And sometimes I think we overcomplicate it. And so I try to okay, let's just take a step back and prioritize what's most important, or where we feel like we can make an impact today, and try to cut the stuff out that is just, like you said, just noise. And, especially negative press, right? Because right now it's a lot about market conditions, and, there's all kinds of unfortunate layoffs happening, which are the reality of the market today. But let's focus on the things that we can control. And some of that is just our attitude, right? And that can be tough. We got to dig deep sometimes. But I also tell people, usually when we have a new person start, we'll go around the room and everybody gives a little piece of advice. And for anybody that's worked with me for many, many years, mine is always the same. And it's always just keep it light, this isn't rocket science, it can be a lot of fun. So learn lessons, have a quick memory, adjust accordingly, but, just have fun with it, have a sense of humor. Everything we do is about building relationships. And I think people want to be around people that are positive and, inspired and genuine and all of those things. And those are things within our own direct control, I feel like. So.
Yeah. It's so nice. It's like, it really is that simple.
Yeah.
Like we have, we have shared, experiences with being in technology staffing, and the problems we had in like 1994, 1995, I have a few clients and I'm like, this isn't don't take this personal. This isn't your problem. This is the age of dawn of staffing. Sales and recruitment need to align. And just how light you said it, just back up. It's really not that hard. You have a client that has a need, and we've got people who might be able to do the job. Send the right person over and cut the noise.
Yeah. I told somebody recently, I was like, our industry is a little like a soap opera. You could watch it and then back away for a couple of years and come back into it, and the storyline is pretty much the same thing.
I
just maybe slightly different characters.
Yeah. It's so true. And what I love, what I was admiring your leadership style, because when you were saying you got to give them, this is them making the bed, you got to give them space and learn it. If it's the person that has the newest person joining the company, they've got like the same questions and the same observation, but they say it from a different fervor or a different point of view, that if you actually listen, you're like, why didn't we think about this earlier? Like the solutions is different, and it can be applied. And so as I was hearing you talk, like you're the type of leader that you wouldn't belittle somebody when they raise their hand up and point an age-old problem. You'd be like, tell me more. Like, how could we solve it? And that's where that growth mindset kind of comes in, because every team is different. Our dad always used to talk about like every child born is born into a new family.
Yeah.
All your kids are different because one didn't have any other brothers and sisters. One had many others. They witness things differently. And the same thing with our teams. And if we don't give them the honor of their experience in joining a new family, a new team, or anything like that, we're really doing a disservice.
Mm-hmm. I know. I've definitely talked with my leadership teams about this, because I think we have a tendency to feel like a broken record, as leaders, like, oh, I keep saying the same things, or keep, answering questions in the same way. And my response is, that's okay. That's okay. Because those questions are being asked by separate people. Hopefully we don't have somebody asking the same question, 16 times. That's a whole nother issue. But just that messaging, it's okay to have that repetition. It's just part of it. It's just part of leadership. It's part of parenthood. It's, all of those, questions that are coming up. It's our responsibility to help, provide that perspective, even if you're 12 years into leadership and you feel like you've said it 1,000 times. It's just, that's part of the deal. And that's okay.
Erin, with the advent of AI that's just everywhere right now, and considering you work in the technology field, what has that made any changes or significance to your work process, or what's coming down the pipeline?
I would say to a certain degree, yes, but not a direct impact for me and my teams today. Although I can see that coming and a benefit to that for sure. And then of course, just starting to have interesting conversations with our customer base who are, just facing that same change. And, in some cases, I think there's some nervousness within certain populations and work groups, and in other demographics or other organizations, some excitement. And so, yeah, but for us, nothing that's drastically or radically changing our workflow or how we're doing our jobs day to day. So we'll see.
I've had a conversation with Marcy a couple of days ago about using ChatGPT, and decided that I'm going to coin the phrase that it's like Botox. You just want to use enough that you can still smile.
Right.
Yeah, your work can still smile, not use too much of it.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
I find it, I am continually fascinated by it and what opportunities it's going to bring. I think it's going to make people smarter, because we have to work around what we think computers can do.
Mm-hmm.
Also probably more personalized. Like I think about Erin, your industry, if it was all automated, people would get hired based on words they put on a resume that was generated by a computer.
Yeah.
But when they get on the team, they will not be the right person. So if you can't personalize that recruiting process and know if they're a cultural fit and understand the teams, like the human element of understanding, one person could be phenomenal on this team and just awful on this other. Same job, just two different companies, same person. And so, you really only know that if you can understand personalities.
Yeah. I read an article, it's been several years, so I don't know if I'd like to think that it still holds true, but it was specifically around technology skill set, technology talent. And essentially that clients or hiring managers still hired 80% for personality and team fit. more than the technology skill set. And so I don't know if, like I said, that was probably 5-7 years ago that I read that article, but that human element, to your point, Marcy, is never going to go away. That's such a big piece of why we get work done. Maybe not how we get work done, but that ability to communicate, interact, build that collaboration with your team. That's stuff you can't automate, right? So.
Yeah, absolutely. I do find it interesting. So would love to ask you a little more. So if we have anybody that's watching this, so sometimes we have some of our teams are like in career transition. So they might have been in a career, staying home for a little bit. Now they're going forward. What's the best advice to working with recruiters? So they're looking for a job, and how do you kind of tap into recruiters and leverage them?
Yeah, I mean, I think the partnership is probably the first word that comes to mind. I remember being a recruiter, and the best relationships that I was able to build and really understand what was important for a particular candidate was because we just had this really good open lines of communication. And I do think, sometimes recruiters get a bad rep, sometimes for good reason, but ideally, we're really just honing in on that particular individual and not treating them like a commodity, right? Like our next paycheck. But it's those relationships I think that, recruiters can build and the candidate ideally with their recruiter so that they just have that trust, and I remember rooting for candidates, whether I got them the job or they got a job through another avenue, like, let's just get you a job. And then, some of those were my best relationships in my, as part of my network, and they would refer people to me because we built that trust. And then when they were on the job market again, we'd get back together and talk about their next steps. So I think just being willing to, engage and sometimes let your guard down and really open the dialogue. And hopefully recruiters are doing that on the other side and, building that trust. That's the most important thing. The technology world is so small. People look at Seattle, for instance. Oh, it's such a big market. At the end of the day, you are coming across a lot of the same people. And if you do it right, and you build that trust on either side of the fence, it can be a really fruitful relationship. In terms of just connecting people to opportunities, et cetera. So, yeah.
True. Well, I love this conversation. I always love learning more from people, and for you, hearing about how you build cultures, working with teams, and just navigating how to be successful in this day and age is so inspiring to hear that. So I want to say thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. It was really nice chatting with you, and appreciate again the opportunity.
And if somebody wanted to reach out to you, is LinkedIn the best place? What's the best place to reach out?
Always. Yeah. I'm a huge LinkedIn person. So yeah, for sure.
Wonderful. Well, on behalf of my sister, Allison Nissen, and I, we want to say thank you to everybody, and we hope you have a wonderful day.
Great. Thanks, ladies.
Revel Coach is a collaborative platform that builds leadership programs for entrepreneurs, coaches, executives, and authors. For more information, visit us at revelcoach.com and follow us on LinkedIn to never miss an update.